Hello, hello. Hey, how's it going, everybody? Hey, Ghibli, how's it going? You're in the tavern channel, you say? That's cool. I may or may not join a little bit or later. Hey, I am. Hey, I got this all set up. It's been so long. I'm Squeetee. We're gonna watch some Ashes of Creation. Their June development update came out 2 days ago. Probably a lot of people seen it already. We'll just go through and watch it. Just so everybody knows, I'm gonna say now I'm on call for work. If my work phone goes off, it's gonna be real loud. I apologize, and I'm probably gonna mute myself, answer the phone. I'll let the stream just keep rolling. What else we got? And that's about it. So, um, we're gonna let I think it's Steven and Margaret. Yeah, they're gonna chit chat and tell us about I think some Alpha 2 update.
Hello, everyone.
Combat
Salutations
update,
and
I
welcome
believe.
to our glorious Ashes of
Hopefully the
Creation
sound is
June
a good
development
quality.
update. We hope that everyone is well and safe and been having a wonderful month. We've got a 3-day weekend coming up. We're
I
excited.
know. It's 4th of July.
Yeah, here in the U.S. So we're excited about that. And of course,
United
we're excited to
States.
show off a little bit of combat. So if you don't know us, I'm Margaret Crone, our community marketing lead. And with me, as always, is the one, the only Stephen Sharif, aka our creative director. And with me, and his
Hello.
beautiful blooms behind him, the
Blooms.
orchids.
I hope they don't have like
Oh, yeah, that's right.
10 minutes of intros.
The orchids.
Can I see that?
Yeah, they
Okay.
can see that.
Nice.
And of course, today we will be going over our quick reminders, and then we'll be showing off something you all have been anticipating, which is
Oh,
a
my
small slice of
gosh.
combat. But this will be our basic weapon attack update. We'll be also showcasing some character arts updates and doing our studio update and then Q&A. We're doing stuff in a little different order because we want to get straight to the juicy stuff because we know
Yes,
y'all
we have
are
taken your
excited.
feedback into our run of show, and Margaret has changed things around so we get to the meat faster.
All right. And of course, for that, we have
Not much?
our
Oh,
next
good.
dev discussion, which is going to be about, I mean, it was already up already. It's about gear color customization. So we asked you, how do you feel about dyeing your gear?
I
How
would
far
like
would you
that.
like the system to go? Do you prefer a full color range that allows for some odd color combinations or more limited one that preserves visual
Give me the
fidelity and
craziest,
realism?
stupidest
So if you haven't
I
gone
can do.
over to our forums,
That's what I
given
would
us
like.
feedback on that, please do.
I know it's gonna be hard for a game
Because
to
we would
do,
like that.
but
And
I'd
then, of
like that.
course, our
I
next
want to
one
run
will
around
be
with
on
a
world map discovery. So
a
definitely
pink
keep
dwarf
us
or something
in that
silly
down
with
below.
their
There's been
big
some
beard.
changes on the world map front, but I think we'll save that for a future update. But there has been some significant changes.
How?
Yeah.
Steven, you
Just
can't
to
tease
tease
us.
that.
I mean, that's going to be a fun update. I can't wait to
Yes.
I can't wait to showcase that. And
Mhm.
of course, we have our comment of the day, or of the month, I should say. And if you would like your comment to be chosen, all you have to do is when we upload this to YouTube, go over there, leave us a comment. Make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube. And if you are subscribed, we will be picking a random subscriber to be
Comment's a good
showcased.
point
And
here.
for this one,
It's
we've
just a
got
week for the
Realm SLB
environment.
who wants to know, or who noted, love this idea and impact of seasons in the economy. However, I feel that 1 week real time per season is way too short. It should be like a month in my eyes. Otherwise, this vision of people carrying things around won't really happen. People will
I
just
agree.
stock up a lot
I agree.
for the winter, and that's it.
So that's an interesting comment, and actually just want to touch on it real quick. Uh, the weather systems, the season systems, that's going to be a obvious point of testing for Alpha 2, of course. You know, we're going to play
Better
around with the
be.
different cycles and times, and how they impact the economy, the rotation of resources, the movement of goods. Like all of those things play into the purpose, one of the purposes of having seasonal systems. So that is something that we are going to play with
Yeah, that's
during
very
our
true.
Alpha 2 testing. And we'll land on what feels both most comfortable, is visually appealing, but also has the impact on the economy that we desire
You know, if
to
they want
see,
to make this
on the
game
design side.
where they make a lot of money off the
Yes. So,
cash
of
out,
course,
they
thank
wouldn't
you
have
all
a
for your
die
feedback.
system,
We've got a
honestly.
ton of seasonal feedback, and we'll be compiling some of those things and sharing them with our development team. So we really super duper appreciate all of that. And of course, just a quick reminder that our opulent negotiations cosmetics swap over will be happening July 13th at 11 a.m. Pacific. Reminder that all of the
Scorpion's pretty
variants
cool.
made from these sets you'll see in game as NPCs, creatures, buildings, etc. And we'll actually be showcasing some variants today if you don't follow us super closely. For those of you who do, you might have already seen some of those, but we've made some updates to the imagery. And with that, I think we can go.
Oh, they actually
into
show
a
the
basic
dye
weapon
stuff
attack
later?
combat
Oh.
update. If you want to
Yes.
set some preface
I would
to the
like
video.
to, yes, I'd like to preface the video. So I made this decision, what was 3 weeks ago? I stepped into,
okay.
3 or
it was
4
like 4
weeks
weeks
ago.
ago, 3 or 4
4
weeks ago.
Yeah.
I stepped in and I talked with Margaret.
We had another topic originally planned for this month.
We did. However, it had been weighing on me that, I wanted to begin showing some of the combat that we were getting completed for Alpha 2. And rather than having a big grand reveal of all of the class kits and abilities and the combat changes that we've made, I want to segment up these updates into smaller chunks so that people have an opportunity to comment on specific aspects of the changes that we've made for combat. And the first and foremost one that made sense for us to do, which is probably the most foundationally core aspect of combat, is going to be the basic weapon attacks. And I wanted to showcase and focus on the changes that have been made with regards to the directional movement functionality, root motion versus split body, the ancillary components of combat that are animation, VFX, and audio, and just show that at a base weapon level. So we decided.
Side comment: why is Margaret displaying her Nintendo Switch controllers? Like, I'm sitting here looking at the screen. Yeah. She's got this fluffy chair. And I'm like, why are these here? Oh, well. Anyways.
That for this
Slightly
month,
distracted.
what we're going to do is give you guys a look at those basic weapon functions. There's a couple of skills that are thrown in there from our weapon master class.
Because there's Sailor Moon little
it's primarily focused on the feeling of that basic weapon combo attack, right? And I want to make sure that you content creators out there who make content for Ashes and kind of relay to your audiences the updates that we provide, that you contextualize this update in the appropriate manner, because of course our engaged audiences, they see this update, they've been watching our progress for a significant amount of time, and they can touch point A to B to C and see that progress. But unengaged audiences, they look at something and they don't necessarily always have the best context for active development and what is a work in progress, of course, and they will look at something and assume it's a final product. Now, as you know, this is not the final product. We always iterate. We continue to improve. There's a lot of stuff that still goes into making combat a good thing. And combat's a really touchy subject because, you see weather effects and you see seasons, and those can look universally good. Or you see a character creator, you get the versatility and the functionality that's present there, the customization options. Those can be universally perceived as very good. Combat is a very different type of subject, right? There are a lot of different ways that combat can be portrayed in games. All of us have our own subjective view of what is good combat. Do we want super fast pace, very tactile, slower pace, tap targeting, all those types of things? There's a realm of
right?
Exactly. There's a realm of preference there. But with that being said, we have taken feedback specifically from Alpha 1, and we've tried to iterate upon that feedback and present it in such a way with this video that gives you context for those basic weapon feelings, those root foundational types of movement and pacings that exist. So keep that in mind when you content creators out there are kind of relaying this information to the audiences that might not be as familiar with the project.
You really want some of that free advertising.
This is just to focus on the basic weapon attacks. It is focusing on that aspect of combat. We will unveil additional aspects of combat, being ability systems, class rotations. We'll talk about the
I
VFX
really
pipeline
hope-
and how that advances with
I really was hoping
with
by
the
like
ability
August
system
they
as
would
well.
have Alpha
You know,
2
those
out.
are going to be
I really was hoping.
additional beats that we hit leading
And I'd
up
be
to the
really
next few
confident there
months
at the
that we'll
timetable,
showcase
but
on these streams. But
Alpha
this
2
And
first
doesn't
also,
one,
show up
this
till
is
next
the
year. Then
melee specific basic
who
weapon.
knows
yes,
when the
that's
There's
team
right.
still
will
We'll
come
show
out at
ranged
that
ranged,
point.
versions.
absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. So keep that in mind. I had a great time filming this yesterday. I think the team has done a phenomenal job. If you do some comparisons between where we were last year and where we are today, there's a significant difference. So
And
I
we've
hope
taken
you
your
guys
feedback from Alpha 1.
absolutely.
You all sent us a lot of great feedback. A lot of those things were things we already were thinking of adjusting and changing as well. So we hope that you
Yes.
see that
Okay.
culmination
Okay,
as we
Margaret.
showcase this. And, you know, as we showcase further along the other pieces that Stephen just mentioned, we will, hopefully you'll be able to see some of the feedback just from this update as well.
Absolutely. Very
All right.
excited, guys. Enjoy.
Ready? All right. We'll see you on the flip side.
Unreal Engine 5. We gotta throw that logo in. I wonder what kind of deal they're getting from Unreal or Epic. That's a long title.
Hello, everyone, and welcome
that
to
boat again.
another live
Well,
stream
like,
day
you buy their
for Ashes
engine,
of
right?
Creation. Super
But,
excited
like,
to be with
how
everybody today.
cheap
We
did
have
they
a
get
pretty
it?
awesome showcase. I think it's
Hold on,
something
Steve,
that the
you're a little loud
community
for me.
has been asking
Like,
for a little while. Actually,
How
I
cheap
think
did they
last time we
get
showcased
licensing for the
some
engine?
combat
Because they're like the
gameplay
only
was
MMO
a
using Unreal
year
Engine.
ago,
You know, I
roughly,
don't know.
almost.
They've just had that
But
stamp
I am very
all
excited
over
to
the
show you
place.
guys what we have in the works today. I have joining us with me today two of our extraordinary engineers, Adam and Keenan. How you guys doing?
Hello,
Yes,
Steven.
yes.
Doing well. How are you?
I am doing very good, running around like a chicken with its head cut off, but otherwise very good.
You know, they're teasing us with this boat
Keenan, how
in the
you doing, buddy?
background.
I'm doing good.
Until I
Glad
see
to be
someone
here.
Awesome.
piloting
I'm excited
the
to have you.
boat,
This is your
or
first stream, I believe,
whatever
correct?
they use you
This is my
word to
first
use
stream.
for
Very cool. Adam, you've been on a couple ones
sailing a
before
boat,
this,
I
yeah?
guess.
Yeah. It's
I
good to
don't
be
care.
back.
It's just on a track.
Very cool. And then I also have
Looks cool.
joining
Looks
us
nice.
today one of our senior game designers, Mr. Trad. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be back on stream.
Welcome back. Very excited to show what you guys have been working on, what the team has been working on. I know I probably already said this on the stream, but I'm going to reiterate it here, that what you're about to see is not the final combat in Ashes. This is a portion of the combat systems. Obviously, a lot goes into making combat, right? From a visual
Yes,
effects
that's true.
perspective, from a mechanics and functionality on the engineering side, the design elements and how it synergizes with our class kits and ability systems, the balance of these things, the audio component, the UI. There's a lot that goes into making combat for an MMORPG, and the combat you're going to see today is very focused on one component, actually two components, I'm sorry. The first of which is our basic melee weapon attacks, in addition to our floating text UI. So keeping that in mind,
Considering I
that
turn
is the
floating
context
text off
of
in
today's
almost every
presentation.
game.
Previously,
care.
I had decided that I wanted to wait to showcase combat until, until we had pretty much everything done and ready to show. And as time grew, I decided what I wanted to do instead was showcase little portions of each component of the combat system, starting with the basic melee weapon attacks, and then we'll move into, in a later live
Other
stream,
version isn't bad.
the ability
I'll
systems,
hold
and the
judgment.
class kits. And of course, we're not going to show every class kit and everything that's going to be in Alpha 2. We want
It's
some
been
of that
one of
to
my
be a surprise,
universal
right?
things. I
But
always
we do
I go
want
and
to
I turn
showcase
off.
the work
all-
that's been done and
Well, I
the
don't
direction
wanna
that's
use
been
third party.
taken, so that we get
Oh,
plenty
I
of
don't use
feedback.
third-party
And
add-ins
personally,
either, unless it's like a
playing
DPS
this,
meter
I
for a
think it
raid. But
feels
I turn
amazing.
off all
I think it
floating
looks great.
text.
I'm super
unless it's a
impressed
heal
continually
one,
by our team's
so that way I can watch if
talents.
HOTS are running
as
on
I
people.
know a lot in the community
That's
are
all I care
after having
about.
seen the character creator and the weather
Well,
systems
I'm used to
and season
SWTOR and
systems.
SWG that had no
there's
add-ons.
a very high quality bar that we're setting ourselves
Still, I
up
mean,
for
SWTOR still has just
with
a
Ashes of
DPS
Creation,
meter
and
add-on.
I think
It's not even an
it is
add-on.
what the community wants. But it's great to have these touch points where we get your feedback.
Touch
So
points.
focus today is going to be on basic melee weapon attacks. It's going to be on root motion versus split body, the types of agency that's provided to the player while also respecting the weightedness we want from certain weapon groups, and also talking about the UI element and showcasing floating text and the types of customization options that players are going to have. So keep that in mind. That's the context of today's presentation.
Yes,
And
that
when we
is the
get to
new race.
commentary,
Yeah,
let's focus on what you like
waiting
and
for
what
that
you
comment.
think there could be improvements on from that perspective. So without further ado, we are in probably an area that you guys are familiar with. This is the Riverlands biome yet again. You saw this in the last month's live stream, but we are in an area that is known to harbor some scary things. So I'm just going to start kind of walking down in this area, and Adam, Keenan, Trad, if you guys want to talk a little bit about how this process began all those months ago,
kick's a little messed up.
Defining good combat,
or it's windy,
for
I don't
Ashes of
know.
Creation.
Sure. I would say, it starts with, all of the hundreds of thousands of hours, cumulative hours of MMO we have under our belt, right?
We have a lot of hours of MMO gameplay under our belts collectively.
We just got to push a couple buttons and we're immediately like, oh, it feels good or it doesn't feel good.
It's funny, Keenan, actually, you say that. One of the you guys all know this because every one of you went through an interview with me, but one of the qualifying aspects of joining the team is, what type of MMOs do you like to play?
Nice. Yeah, so it starts there, and then from there we sort of do our research. We have to take a look at the state of the art.
Rocks.
And then
I knew the evil guy was rocks.
We study it.
I could tell because there was big rocks around.
About what exactly it is that makes things feel good or not feel good. And then we make those things in as controlled a manner as we can. And then we turn the knobs, we tweak things, we see what feels good, what doesn't feel good. We come up with some rules, some processes, and then we put them to the test.
The animation looks like that's a heavy sword. The way it kind of looks there at the end of every animation, being in the ground, like a true two-hand. I get where they were going. Oh, 3.
Comes out to be exactly what you see now.
A little
right?
baby rocks.
Not super great, and then
what was that, Steve?
What we have to be able to do is engineers.
Yeah, and then they stutter like it. Oh, hello.
Not great about those things, and then just continue to iterate on those things. And that's as long as you keep making it better each time, eventually you're gonna end up with something good.
Yeah,
hey Ty, what's
for,
up, bud?
This exercise and finding what makes Ashes great specifically, we wanted to approach it from the ground up, answering individual questions about our hypotheses and what we think is good, right? So we really focused on individual aspects that we think makes good combat.
I like that. I like that ability.
One at a time in a very tight iterative process.
Fighter. Do they say that in the stream?
That we think feels really, really good. So
yeah, just playing this, I am loving the hit reacts, the visual effects, all the ancillary components that go into making the combat. But more importantly, the pacing of this kind of heavier weapon group. Also, as a side note, outside of the combat. One of the things I've not necessarily liked about MMOs traditionally in the past.
Not much on my way to the. You're on the way to the river and you're watching
every
this.
Portion of land is covered by some type of monster, right? And it kind of gives you this weird feel. But here, like, this is a very dangerous area that we're in, the environment, and part of it gets communicated by the aspect
I
of
don't know
these
how
rocks
dangerous the
and like
rocks
the
look.
specific types of materials that's represented here, but you don't know exactly where the threat
Can we mine
lies,
those
per
rocks?
se, right? You kind of move up into an area, and if you move too far, you get the audio cue of the monsters like arising. Your character gets into the combat stance. They have some really cool aspects of animation.
I like how the
The
little
animation
guys
team
move
did
with
an
the roll.
amazing job with the rolls here. And also they're like just like swinging away and then flying off. That is so great.
Yeah, I really like the camp feel of this area where, you don't just see these guys scattered around all over the world. No matter where you go, there's like something that's going to aggro you. It's more like, I'm going to grind here for a bit.
I like how they build, too.
Steven, you were talking about how you like how heavy the sword feels, and that weight impact.
That ground damage every time the basic attack is done is cool.
In our development process. The other side of it is being also like agency. To what extent does this weapon respect your intentions? And that's the part that's important to me. I'm a classic player. I come from traditional MMOs, right? Like I want to be able to move and attack at the same time.
Right. Yes, and that was a huge point of feedback actually that we received during Alpha 1 was that we started with this more root motion approach to the basic weapon attacks. And ultimately we called an audible mid-test. I remember it was in that end of July or beginning of August month where we decided to implement a completely split body approach and get player feedback. And of course the feedback was very positive, resoundingly positive, right? That players prefer that agency over that weightedness, but there's a little bit of a conflict there because they also didn't like the floaty feeling which comes along with not having the weighted approach. So how did that play into your guys' defining this current approach on the weapon attacks? How did you blend those two?
Yeah, so we kind of approached it from looking at player agency primarily, as Keenan had said, and the games that really handled player agency the best are those like classic MMOs, right? Players really like how smooth the classic MMO feel, how much player agency they get out of it. And we took that and we tried building this sort of impact and weight on top of it, really making attacks feel satisfying, making it feel like the inertia of the weapon and your movements are accurate, physically accurate. And we accomplished that through a number of ways. Really, again, talking about the process, we tried to identify each individual aspect of what we got out of these, more modern action games, and tried incorporating that into our classic MMO base. I think it all comes down to looking at it not as a binary of, are we doing split body or are we doing root motion combat? It's looking at everything as modular pieces and then dialing in those numbers to make something that feels high in player agency, feels very impactful, like it has a lot of inertia, it feels very physical.
Yeah, my litmus test for agency in combat is take any moment in combat, pause time, look down at your hands, look at the keyboard. The buttons that you're pressing should be the directions that your character is moving. So with these weapons, even though there are little bits of root motion here or there, they're always respecting your WASD input, and I think that's what makes them feel good.
Yeah.
Another thing that you guys did that helps with that is the timing of which that gets registered, right? Like, it's not, at one iteration we had it where it detected what your input was at the beginning of the
I just want to see different weapons. I don't want it to be too predetermined with just one big sword.
In the middle of that attack, it's too bad. It already kind of cued that, and so
show me some variety.
What you guys are doing is having it happen at like swing time, right?
Yep, it's constantly looking at your input and adjusting.
Now I've equipped these daggers, this dual wielding, these dual daggers. Talk to me a little bit about the differences between the heavier weapon group and the light weapon group.
Yeah. So initially in our investigation, we wanted to start with the light weapons to figure out how to really blend the weight of an attack. And
I want to see different
introduce-
options
start
and
with player agency
actively
and then
showing that
introduce
hey,
that
we
weight
actually have
of the
weapons
attack
working.
into it. We figured the least risky weapon to start with would be the lightest weapon possible. You know, little daggers that move very fast, very high player agency, and not necessarily focused on big weight, much like a heavy sword. So we started with that and tried introducing little bits and pieces here and there, like small bits of root motion to get that nice like dashy feel in when you're attacking, and play into that inertia. I know Keenan might want to talk more about the animation timing sheets we introduced for figuring out these timings that feel good.
Yeah, that's part of our process for communicating cross-department is using frame timing diagrams and being specific about how we not only want to animate, but also how we want to move during different frames of the animation. And we found that to be very successful. But one of the things that makes the daggers different than the sword is that the daggers never really slow you down. They're both respecting your directions, but the swords will actually slow you down at certain times. Like leading up into the strike, your split body movement is sort of blending down toward 0, and then you strike, and then it blends back up toward to 1. The daggers are not doing any blending like that. You're just split body, and then you're striking, and then you're back into split body. It's like a seamless process.
Yeah, I'm just playing with the directionals here. I mean, on the animation team, they did a phenomenal job. I'm loving the kind of foot placement and movement, the strafing feeling on the body there. I know Alexi did a lot of work on the IK as well, that we can see like when you're, kind of stepping up different portions. It feels really good to play.
Oh yeah, considering how physically based we are and animation driven our combat system is, it was super important that the animators, get all of that right, and they absolutely knocked it out of the park. I mean, one of the biggest things I think to making good feeling attacks is getting all of the departments involved in what feels good and on the same page, right? Getting everyone iterating. So, like in the process, we started with chopping up animations to build an ability that we thought felt good. And then we wanted to pass that off to animation to finalize those animations by chopping up our abilities and making the animations that feel good. And we can all loop everyone back together and finalize that ability. VFX has the same process too. So, it's a bunch of different departments iterating on a very micro scale to build something that is just awesome.
Yeah, the animation team definitely had to take a deep breath when we went to them like, hey, those 3-part weapon combos that we like so much? We want different ones for each direction that you can move in. Oh, and also you need to be able to weave between the directionals at any time.
That's horrible.
One of the things that's interesting and is always a point of contention for those of us who have perhaps played different games and have become accustomed to specific visual representation of these damage floating text, right? And I want to showcase a little bit. I'm going to let them hit on me for a little bit just so you can kind of see. Directionally, damage you take, which is indicated in this red number, floats towards your left-hand side. And when you do damage to a target, they float to your right-hand side. Now, one of the very important aspects of these floating texts is providing the player with customization options.
Oh, he's totally in God. He's always in God.
Adjust the size of the floating text. They can adjust the color composition on how these texts are represented. They can also include damage icons to indicate the ability that's used for those floating text. And importantly, excuse me, we also call out the crits that you do in a separate way, how they pop in. They're slightly above those, the other numbers. And then more so, we also have additional functionality for cumulative damage values. So I'm going to kind of go through that. You'll see here as I press, different option. Now we've changed the colors. Whoops, hold on. Let me see. Make sure. Is that color going off differently, or am I do I not have my... Hold on.
Still yellow.
I think
Is
crits
it?
show up
Okay,
different.
Let me
or
try
darker.
this. All right, quick. Oh, maybe that's not. Hold on, let me find a different monster. I hope that's working. If it's not, we can show that a little later. Let me press this button. Oh, here we go. Okay, so you see the color is changing now, and that's something that the player has agency over, right? You can assign different types of colors that you want. That was changing. I think the one I was pressing actually was changing the size. So let me try to change that size again. There you go. You can see that size now is larger. You can showcase XP if you want. You can bolden the numbers a little bit as well. But providing kind of maximum flexibility and character customization, player customization options.
That is probably the best.
I think is super important. But I love the way that they feel, that kind of classic.
Best fly text I have ever seen. I'll be honest.
What were we saying, Keenan? Very vanilla vibe.
Oh yeah, sometimes the best flavor is just vanilla.
Absolutely. Totally agree. Yeah, but the UI team's done a great job on the functionality for that. I think it's feeling pretty good. Yeah, that's very cool. So, where are we now when it comes to kind of the spectrum of light to heavy attack options on these basic weapon attacks? What's kind of next for this as we showcase it to the players?
Well, I think we've sort of defined our spectrum with the light and the heavy when it comes to agency versus weight versus impact. When you look at the heavy, I think we're close to saying that this is sort of the most we want to compromise agency for weight and impact. And once we have that upper bound, we can sort of play with all of the different intermediate points, right, as we start to build out other weapons.
I thought I was gonna miss again.
But we have interesting explorations as well, and how all of this translates into ranged and also ultimates. We might take the limiters off for ultimates and just see what the coolest things we can make are.
Yeah, that's going to be pretty interesting. Another component, by the way, of
tell me more about these ultimates.
Kind of the weapon attacks is also the visual effects side, and weapon trailings, the intensity of those weapon trailings, how they scale based on the type of weapon, the level of weapon that you have, but not just the trailing on the weapon per se, but also the ground decals. Like for this heavy weapon, that first strike, you see that decal in the ground is, I love that look. And even on the backswing, like when I hit the ground behind me, it's causing that decal.
Yeah, and a lot of that stuff gets down into the really low level systems details. Like we want to pass the artists as much information as we can about actual combat ongoings so that they can inform the effects as precisely as they can, or as precisely as they need to, rather.
Yeah, and we really wanted to build on a technical side. We really wanted to build the combat system to, like I said earlier, be as physical as possible. So we have it very animation driven.
Some max level ability for
based
your
on a reference of animation
class,
as opposed to like nebulous timings,
yeah, I'm not
right?
sure either.
Which allows it to feel
kind of like,
very
yeah, ultimates. And then, let's go over here.
So when you hit the ground decal actually appears on the ground when it should. That's something that may not be seen in other MMOs. So we really wanted to make a big focus on that and focus on the responsiveness.
Yeah. One thing I failed to mention, by the way, apologize for that, is actually you guys are seeing the Pyre male for the first time in game. I know we've showed him on the stream before, as these character races get further fleshed out, but here you're seeing him in full flesh and blood, so to speak, virtual flesh and blood, I guess, in the game. And that's pretty cool to see. I can't wait for players to kind of get a look at the customization options and the character creator for this race. Also, another thing that's
does look pretty cool. I would consider making
really
that my main.
Important, I think, is the audio component, and Kat has done a phenomenal job.
That tree was so
both
beautiful.
The sound design for creatures as well as for the weapon, and actually, you guys haven't seen anything yet.
Undergrounders.
We have a lot in store on that front that I think is going to be
Ulnar,
pretty cool, and it's all part of the presentation, right? It's all part of what makes combat feel good. Is also the auditory component. in that. Talk to me a little bit about the capabilities that the audio team has when it comes to accessing combat and the abilities.
Yeah, similar to VFX, we plan on piping in a lot of information. That's something we've been working a lot on recently, is tooling for VFX and sound effects, right? It's a super important part, as you said, of the package in order to sell that weight and that immersion in the game. And there's going to be a lot coming online. So I'm really excited to see what we have in store for that.
The PC is revving up for some reason. I didn't even turn it on.
Show it on stream, but we're building a sort of singular tool that all of the teams can use to build abilities and tweak them. Sound effects, visual effects, animation, design, engineering, all using the same tool, grounded in animation, to build these abilities.
Yeah, absolutely. Another component, Adam, which you guys worked on is camera controls and adding. Talk to me a little bit about the kind of visuals that are provided through these additional camera controls for abilities in combat.
Yeah, so, I mean, the word of the day has been impact and weight, right? And a lot of that is sold through what the player sees. We didn't want anything to be
I was thinking about that. I'm like, that's, that's really nice of you guys that they're doing this.
Settings, but we wanted something that would sell
planning
a lot of the
ahead
weight,
to their entire team
without, being too over the
start
top.
with, it's animation,
sort of cartoonish, right?
You can add the sound
so we
on,
implemented
any
a
other
few different camera
visuals,
effects,
displays, things like that. You can
camera
just
shake,
add it all on.
and a few other things involved, and really
That's
try to
maximize
our bang for the buck with those to sell the weight of these attacks. And it really adds a lot, especially I've noticed a lot of how your peripheral interprets the weight of the attack really sells it for me as a player.
That's a cool ability.
That's something we've been focusing on, and it's made huge improvements to the feeling of these attacks.
Yeah, absolutely.
It'd be cool if you had like a fighter as your primary for the axe attack, and then your secondary was like a healer class. So when it comes down, it damages the enemy, but heals your allies.
Melee weapons, and we'll be showcasing our ranged weapons in combat in a future stream. We're also going to be talking a little bit about and showcasing, which you guys got a little sneak peek on a few abilities, some class kits and the ability systems as a whole. And what we're able to accomplish for Alpha 2. Of course, we promised at the beginning of this year that you guys would be getting some pretty exciting showcases of all the work that's being done on the project towards Alpha 2. You got that with the character creator, you got that with the seasons and weather systems. Now you're starting to get a little bit of touch on the combat side. And I know that there's a lot of stuff that design has been prepping around, the work that's been done on these class kits and the different archetypes that are going to be playable across Alpha 2. But there's a lot in the store, and there's a lot of functionality that the engineering team has provided our designers when it comes to both the functionality of certain types of abilities as well as the synergies possible between them. You want to talk a little bit, Adam, Keenan, and Trad, about what's possible given our ability toolkit?
Definitely. So this whole, prototype process has been kind of, 2 steps. One of those steps was what, Adam and Keenan were talking about a bit there with, their hypotheses on, what makes good feeling combat, and they've done a great job on that. But the other side of that was also just, coming up with these class kits. And, the idea was this might not be the final class, but there will be things that we can take from it that we like, and then get rid of that we don't like, and let's just make something. And you guys have kind of seen some sneak peeks of that already from the Assassin in previous stream, and now you're seeing something from the Weapon Master. That was the other one that we took just to experiment with and contrast these different types of combat. And what I was
another mod. Yeah, they made this world just for this video, so.
Where, maybe,
for
example,
just for this
you've got
video.
a thing that if you kill someone with one of your other abilities,
Yeah,
it'll reset
it's time to eat some pretzel
one of
bites.
these abilities. And there was a lot of that kind of stuff going on in this kit, whereas there wasn't so much of that interaction in the kits in the previous alpha. It was an area that we felt we could really improve. And the good thing about that whole exercise that we did is we came up with a lot of cool abilities. You're not seeing them all here, but they, what it really did for us is it developed our tools because we realized, oh, we can't do this or we can't do that. And so, like the designers and Adam and Keenan here,
I was just thinking about that. I want to go back later and look
say, like,
and see what the assassin
designers
weapon
need to be able
master
to do
look
this
like.
particular thing that we can't currently do, and then they would take that and they would make it possible with the tools. So we're really putting our best foot forward here. That way we're going into like the full class design. We're going to have a lot of stuff that we need to hit the ground running.
Absolutely. Oh, go ahead, Keenan.
Oh, I was just gonna sort of build on Trad's
So
point.
this is the weapon
All
master.
of these exercises, or throughout all of these exercises,
assassin
we're very
will
careful on the ability system side to make sure that when we're adding something new, we make it as modular as possible. We really want to think of these abilities as being made out of like Lego pieces, not being sort of like molded from a single block of clay. So whenever we are trying something,
I don't remember assassin
new,
either.
that's a new piece that we have to explore and combine with all of the other pieces that we've already made.
Absolutely.
Maybe the assassin was the character during the weather
important probably
stream.
for players to understand with regards to Alpha 2 is that this is another testing ground, right? Alpha 2 is a test, and in Alpha 2, we're going to represent components of the class kits and the ability system that may not make it to launch, but it is a perfect area for us to kind of get both player feedback as well as for us to log data around its usage.
That character they played at during the environmental stream didn't feel like a rogue assassin.
We're going to be experimenting a lot with regards to that for Alpha 2. So
I thought he had a magic attack.
Oh, definitely. We're just getting started.
Yes, absolutely. Well, guys, this has been a fun stream. I think I really enjoy, obviously, talking about this.
He did that little like teleport
the hard work that you guys are doing. Everybody on the team is doing across everyone that makes combat a
I can see that being a quick move
thing for us to play with.
Yeah,
there's a lot that
I can
goes
see
into
that
it,
being
I think
a
the team
rogue,
is
but
hitting it out of the park with these showcases as we show.
I know it just didn't feel like a rogue.
What our quality bar is for Ashes of Creation. So I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching. Please make sure it's very important that you guys give feedback with regards to kind of what you saw today. It is
maybe it's just not a fleshed out teleport yet, but just like the basics. But when you're an actual assassin rogue, it'll maybe go invisible, reappear.
As well as our design side have been examining and
it wouldn't make sense if you have to get behind
this approach for the basic weapon melee attacks. But we want to hear your guys' feedback, what you thought of today. So make sure to comment both in the YouTube section as well as on stream, on our forums, on our Discord. Connect everywhere. We value your feedback very much. It is an important part of creating Ashes of Creation. And remember, this is a work in progress. This is something that we are still expanding upon, something that we are still improving. It is never truly finished, but of course, it is getting close to Alpha 2 ready. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Adam, Keenan, Trad, thank you guys for being a part of it. Always appreciate the insight and the talents that you guys bring to Ashes of Creation as a game. We're very happy to have you guys. So everybody in chat, give hearts for our awesome guests today, and I will see you guys back on stream.
Oh, I like my own stream on Facebook. That's funny. Well, I know we were out to get a... Yeah, I don't know. I think a complete invis would be pretty cool, but...
Well, there it is.
Maybe we have. I think they're talking about a passive one or something. I don't remember totally.
But I feel like from reading the chat, I do have some questions that you all posted, but it seems overwhelmingly like most of you like it. There is a little feedback here and there, and if you have feedback for us, I believe right now, if Vaknar is
it looks good.
Along,
the combat did look very good. I would be very happy to play with that. I want to see
and I
range
just want to
combat
kind of comment real quick. So the
and
biggest takeaway that you can ask yourself after watching that, if you're a member of our core audience who's been following development for the last few years.
Yes, sir.
Is the direction and the improvements that you've seen here the right direction? Is that a positive growth
from what you have seen last year
I see an overwhelming yes.
versus to where you are seeing it now. And if that is the answer that you give, then what that means from a development perspective is that it will continue to get better on that path. And the reason for that is we are taking our time when it comes to the quality of this game. And what that means is the additional bells and whistles, the more polished look of animations and visual effects. And as we expand on this idea of combat with class rotations, all this stuff is going to come together into a very tactile, kinetic style of combat. And that's our goal, right? And this gives you a look at what that directional change has been. And if you like that directional change, realize we're not even in Alpha 2 yet. And this is where the combat's at. So by the time we're close to launch,
it better be better. You're right.
You got to project out what that expectation's going to be.
Games take time to make.
Yes.
Especially at the quality level and the
especially
bar that we're
good
trying
games.
to set.
Yes,
Yeah.
especially good games. Look, anybody can rush a game out the door, right?
Hey, like Star Citizen.
I'm not talking negatively
about
launch. Like other game companies or publishers or whatever, but the truth of the matter is that there are deadlines that projects have, and whether something is finished or not, sometimes that deadline doesn't move. And that can result in the experiences that we've shared as a MMORPG community in other games. The benefit or the luxury, I would say, the luxury that we have on Ashes of Creation is our goal is to create something and not ship it until it's ready. And you as a community are part of the litmus test in determining when something is ready because our process is transparent. We're showing you monthly updates. So your feedback on something, whether or not it looks good or it feels good, is this ready to be launched into an Alpha 2 or to launch totally? That's something that is a question that gets asked to you guys, right? And to us. And I think that's the important reciprocal relationship that we as developers have with the community.
Let's see. Hold on.
And that's why we ask for your feedback. That's why we ask for you to get engaged. That's why we ask for you to comment on forums, on Reddit, on whatever, right? That is a very important part of our process. And it's something I think that is not unique to
Discord,
Intrepid, but it is something that is not done overwhelmingly across a lot of projects. And so we want to capitalize that as much
so maybe
as
they're going to push out Alpha 2 sooner than the 90% figure,
small chunks,
and then they're going to stretch out that last
that have been
percentages,
do it earlier,
chunks of the game throughout Beta 1, Beta 2, Beta 1, whatever.
We were nervous, but I think at the same time, we're nervous every time. We never.
I don't mind. I think it will really benefit them to get the game out there in people's hands.
But at the same time, we know it's a work in progress.
With data and
everyone else can
picking apart stuff and giving direct commentary on abilities and skills.
There were some questions in chat. I would like to try to get to some of those. We do have a Q&A as well that we'll pull from the forums.
I think if they got it, I really think it's been a year since Alpha 1 ended almost.
People were asking,
I really think they should get Alpha 2 out August, September, maybe October of this year.
Can you have Stephen clarify what they meant
by whatever they have, because they can
for agency versus
just
weight? Does that mean
get information from people
more heavy than this, or does it mean there's some room for improvement there?
Go from there.
Well, there's always room for improvement. As I said, it's a work in progress. So we're going to be improving on those things. However,
that's my
what's meant by the upper range of agency is there is a balance between player motion and agency, as we call it, right? And weapon weightedness that almost locked in place.
That's true. You do risk the burnout of testers. Now, I would be more worried about the burnout of the testers
that player agency
if it was like Alpha 1 quality, where there was like a ton of broken quests.
Heavyweight kind of aspect. And so
nothing really worked. I mean, we had our 3 classes, but they weren't fleshed out.
Dual daggers and the two-handed weapon.
They got things
we've kind of shown
like,
the range between that complete player agency in the light weapon
nodes working with events
and the maximum
and people can do the events to test them and run them.
weightedness that's
It
present
gives them
on the
activities to
two-handed
do.
weapon. And that's the
You
spectrum
know, and you
in
don't
which
have to have the
our
test
basic
up
melee
7 days a
combat
week.
will exist within.
You can run
So
it over
for
the
medium
weekend.
weapon groups that
You know,
exist
maybe a
in between
Thursday
there,
to
it's gonna
Monday
be
thing, and
somewhere in
tell it, hey,
between
if
that
the server
spectrum.
crashes, it crashes. Good luck,
Right.
guys.
And
No
then
one's going to be
these
sitting
next
here
two
in the
questions
office.
are both in regards to UI, and I already know the answer, so
You
that's why
know,
I'm
I
mixing
think
them
that would be
together.
I think it gets some
One is in
information. I was
regards
expecting
to, and this was a
some
lot of
spot
people, so I
tests
didn't quote a
within the
specific
last
person. There's
like
a lot of
2
people asking about
months,
this.
and I haven't
But
seen
can
any.
they change the color
Or
of the text
Yes.
of the floating
I
text,
just missed
etc.,
it.
customize it in any way, like pick which color they want for crits, etc. And then Snooky X or Snucky S.
Snooky?
Yes.
Will there be any HP indicators and things of that sort? Because they didn't see that in this.
Yeah, just real quick. So when it comes to UI, we have a very talented UI team, by the way, in love with all the work that they've been doing so far. And we are all in agreement that player customization options are paramount when it comes to UI, right? That is a very subjective thing that we've all become, our own flavors we like out of certain components of the UI. And so instead of trying to force down the throat of our players a specific approach to UI, why do that when we can develop options and customization that the players can influence themselves? That includes color compositions, it includes text sizes, it includes bolded, it includes options of which informations you're
moving
choosing to
stuff
display.
around, scaling.
Absolutely. Like that is our approach from a UI's perspective, 100%.
Yeah, and as a content creator myself, being able to customize the UI to match my overlays and things like that will be amazing. And I've appreciated
Yes.
that in other games. So we're definitely keeping those things in mind for y'all. This next question, there's actually
that's a
two
good
parts
question.
to it. One is from one person, one from the other, but they kind of tie in about the same topic. So this is from the shiniest bubble wants to know, I wonder how much moving the camera / targeter affects hitboxes. It seems like movement might be moving the hitbox during the attack. And
Yeah,
then
he was. So maybe
Seven
he's
wants to
just.
know,
Yeah, he didn't
should not
answer
be
that
able
very
to
well.
move that fast while swinging. That's their kind of like perspective of it. So
Maybe he was
that's
talking
fine.
about like the
it's
target
important
you
to
have
note
up
that
in the
there's a
corner.
balance in the game design between
If you're doing tab targeting,
movement speed on attack and the movement speed of your opponent. When you have a game that is both PvE centric as well as PvP centric, you have to make sure that combat is blended for both approaches. And we can always run into problems where if you're significantly hampered in your movement speed, that has an effect on how we expect player versus player engagements to interact. And we don't want to restrict a player's ability
that's true.
to be
We can't see a
mobile if they're the target of an attack. And as a result of that, we need to make sure that we don't restrict the movement abilities of the player who is doing the attacking as well. So we want it to be relatively free form, you to stay with each other, your opponents, move around the battlefield together. And if we're hampering you on the attack action, we have to then implement some type of snare or slow or CC effect essentially on your opposing target. And that's not the approach we want to take for PvP.
Cool. This kind of is like a segue from that, which is from Hadukai and Elit, and they both want to know.
Yeah, his answer just
will we have
confused
some
me.
avoidable attacks? Is there any chance for weaving or animation canceling?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
There are intended dodges and gap closers and mitigating increased mitigation effects for incoming damage that are situationally reactively relevant, right? So you see an animation wind up, that's a telegraph on what's coming. And then you have response actions that you can take as a result of that in order to dodge, weave, move, do whatever, right? It is both a combination of what your rotation is, but also how you have reaction abilities ready to go that you save for certain circumstances that are important.
All right. And then the next one here is from Falcath, and they want to know, what about camera? How far we'll be able to zoom out? What will be like the min max of zooming in and zooming out? I don't know if you have exact answers on that.
I personally tend to be a fan of having maximum zoom capabilities, right? I want to be able to see what's going on
I
around
want
me.
to see the
That's
entire
my
continent.
experience as a raid leader, as a shot caller, as a guild leader. I kind of want to have the perspective of the battlefield. And I know a lot of other players like that too. So again, leaning into the player option side here, allowing a pretty significant distance on the zoom is something we're going to be going for. And you can kind of see that as I zoom out in different sections of this combat. It's pretty high up. So,
Stephen
No,
does like to be
Stephen,
zoomed
it's
out
not.
really far, and
I
we've gotten a lot
do.
of feedback that's like, don't zoom out that far. So
I
it's
know
a mixed bag.
it's another subjective thing, but
It's preference.
whenever
right?
you have that preferential or that subjective aspect, give them the option. Give the players the option. Let them choose if they want to be zoomed out, very far, or if they want to be close in. I mean, how many times I've played a game where they have some type of mod that you can install that gives you a higher zoom distance, and I'm just thinking to myself, why do I have to have the mod? Why can't I just have this choice?
I agree,
That
Mr.
was a
Steven.
question. We've already stated we don't want to allow mods, but if there are things in customization that you want, please send us that feedback, as we want to implement those things. We want them to be native to the game and for you to be able to customize them. So the next question here is from Shoximity, and they would like to know, will different races have different animation for combat? Sorry, Myers.
Well, they won't. What we try to do in order to limit excuse me, there's a lot of stuff to make in an MMO. So I don't know, I've often said this, and making games is hard. Making an MMORPG is probably the most difficult type of game you can make, and our MMORPG is a particularly ambitious one. When it comes to assets, when it comes to animations we have to author, we want to save as much as we can in certain places while also keeping the level of
you didn't miss
quality
anything
that we want to hit. So one of the ways we do that from an animation perspective is we're not going to be having, I think, unique combat animations. However, we will have unique non-combat animations, such as your idle, your walk, your run cycle, things that the combat attacks do not have to blend back into, right? Those combat attacks animation-wise blend back into the combat idle stance. And then when you're out of that combat idle stance into a non-combat idle stance, that's when you take the unique poses or the unique walk and run cycle, just to give it, character flavor for what the specific race you're playing is. And that's how we mitigate the bloat that would come if we had to make all of our combat animations blend back into the combat idle stance, if that was a unique one.
Yeah, I mean, one of those swings is like, they have to make so many different animations just for that one swing because of like all the options that you could choose. Go left, right, straight, backwards. Like, it's not just one animation that they make for one swing. It's
64 different attacks would be unbelievable.
From just that one.
That'd be amazing.
Forever if
we
answered everyone's
over
question,
the
so
top.
I'm going to ask this
and I don't
last
think it
one,
would be
and
a
then we're
thing
going to
that people
transition
would
because
care
we still
about
have more
down
stuff
the
to
road.
show you all. So first, so this last one is from a house
See what's-
news, and I know you asked a very big question, but I'm going to consolidate it. And their basic question is that we had stated that we were going to allow people to use like any class combination, which would be both your archetypes together, being able to use any weapon. Do we see problems that could occur with that? For instance, like a bow tank or an orb tank or things like
bow tank.
Will there be some strangeness there, or are there problems that you are foreseeing in the future?
Is the question, do I foresee problems or strangeness from allowing player characters to choose the types of weapons?
Well, it's more, will there be any functions to discourage people from using certain combinations, or will certain
we're giving
ones
a lot of
better?
We're giving a lot of flexibility to the crafters in our game. They get to help define the stat block that a particular item, weapon, or gear has, and that stat block can be relevant to any particular class or archetype combination. So in that sense, the idea is not to see any strangeness there, or not to see any elements that would dissuade a person from that customization perspective.
Okay.
So
I hope you can hot swap weapons. Like,
and of course, just a reminder,
if I'm a tank and the guy's running away from me, or I'm shooting up, or there's people on a castle wall, I want to pull out a bow and I want to pop. But then when it's time to be a tank, pull out my shield and my sword and I go beat people down.
And toss us your feedback. It's in the general feedback thread for this live stream. So we would love for your thoughts, and we will consolidate those for our design team. And with that, we shall move on to some really cool stuff, which is our character art team's goodness.
Don't lie to
And
me.
You're gonna
Oh,
go
okay.
straight into seeing the Dread Crawler,
What's
which
that?
was done by
Dread Crawler?
Danny. This is one of our burrower demons, and it's super cool.
Yes, it is very cool. So this guy is a boss that you'll be seeing in Alpha 2. He lives in the desert biome, but his story is during the fall, and I guess I won't expand too much on it, but during the fall, he was essentially a war machine. He was used by the ancients to help defeat certain cities in the world. And he did so by both burrowing under those
What do you mean
cities
by the
and
ancients?
coming out from the ground from within,
What do you mean,
causing
Steven?
chaos while the outside forces would attack that city.
Ancients
or he could be
bad?
used as a war machine to just demolish the walls and break through for those ancient legions to make their way in.
All right, well, you get a little lore too.
Yeah.
A little snack.
Why does his nose open up?
We have a little turntable of him as well, so you can see the.
That looks
3D.
odd.
I love the interactions that Danny has on the top of his head. The little dude that pops out and his little projectile that he shoots.
Yeah, you can see it sticking out there. If you're wondering what that little piece is.
Oh, he shoots?
Pretty cool.
That's what's from. Oh yeah.
The little touches everyone puts on things. I mean,
so we got we got
the passion that we have. Everyone is super passionate about their
wetlands or whatever biome,
and
desert.
You see that in the work that they put out. It's pretty amazing.
At least
even has mantle.
This is a boss. I could totally see this guy mid-fight burrowing underground
very talented
and like grabbing someone with their tentacle thing and then whipping him around the world.
We actually have a few different variants of this as well.
This is nice.
Like we said, these are going to be used for NPCs, or you can see the weapons here as well in the world. So one of our developers was like, maybe we could make it so the NPC based on the season would change, the leaves would change color with the season, which I think is cool. I'm manifesting that.
That's a lot of work if you ask me.
Fall off as you're running, and you just have like a little trickling of leaves behind you.
Sorry, Jim, your team. We're just gonna keep adding more things to your team.
They already have that effect for the trees. We can just apply it to the costume.
Yeah, because that's easy, Steven.
Have it smaller amount. You don't want like a whole tree falling down.
Of course, they adjust it, but that's a slider.
It's a slider.
It's just a slider, Jim.
It is a slider.
And then next up we have our curse charger. So this is kind of what I wanted to showcase. Is like this is a curse charger that you all have seen. This is a little touched up, better. They've been touching up all of the creatures, but here are the variants that you're seeing come from them. So looks quite different. If you've watched a lot of our other streams or seen actually our in-game footage, you've probably seen a lot of variants as well. But I just wanted to show that a little bit more for you guys, especially for the folks who don't maybe follow every little post that we put out there. But yeah, Jinsey has done. Yeah, Jinsey took these and made them even better, if that's possible. She's just amazing. And Eli did the mantle of the Radiant Grove.
Yes.
And last but not least, you did see the Pyre in game, but we have some updated images. If you follow us on social,
get ready for some booties. Get ready for some booties.
If you follow us on social, so I tried to post these on Discord to our PI people, and it was not letting me because
it was getting flagged for nudity.
It was getting flagged for nudity. But
what?
Yeah, they look amazing. We've taken a lot of your guys' feedback. We still have the branchlers, even though some people don't like them. But, there are other races that you can choose from if you don't like branchlers.
And as we demonstrated,
I need to get back.
By the way,
it used to auto turn on. And then it just stopped auto turning on. I never get in.
The character creator.
There are sliders.
We do have sliders. So it is a thing.
Yeah. And I'll show you this will prompt the.
I know half the time I'm in Discord with Ashes, it's just people like
not just one,
putting memes in nonstop. I'm just like, I don't want to dig through all this.
There's equal opportunity sliders, so let's be clear on that.
I should log in like every couple of days and then just search for anyone like Steven's name and look for all his stuff.
We have taken your feedback and we've made some adjustments. And of course, I believe if you follow us on social, Steven actually teased these already. And Vacnar did update that thread, the Pyre thread, with the new images. So if you have any feedback on them, you can go over to that thread, and if we see a large amount of differences in the feedback, we'll definitely relay that over to our development team. But we've already sent them over a report, and that's why they've made the changes that they have made. And then this is the male version.
I was going to say, did we not have the male one?
Yeah, we have the male. Just,
like an old guy.
Equal opportunity. Yeah. Equal opportunity, Maggie.
Well, sometimes we only show one over the other. That's and true. People always ask.
That is true. I know.
And women's bodies tend to be very controversial, so we usually start with some
women's bodies are very controversial. Okay, Margaret.
Some feedback on how they should be, portrayed. So
that's true.
But I think that we'll provide you guys with sliders that you can adjust based on the different races and how far along those scales we want to showcase. And if you haven't seen our character creator, like if you're new to Ashes of Creation and this is your first stream that you're watching, oh my gosh, go to our YouTube channel, go search in the little search box character creator and go watch our character creator. Our team is that's not even our character creator finished. So please go look at it. It is phenomenal.
Absolutely.
I'll play the 3D version.
Steven's getting bored. He's like, absolutely.
We'll get to our Q&A and wrap up the.
All right, fun part. Let's go.
Any studio updates that you want to talk about?
Hiring is going great. We had, I think we had almost 400 applicants last month, and we accepted, I think, 14 of them.
Oh wow!
So we are doing a great job on that front. Very excited with the talent that we have that's joining the team. We're continuing to grow. So things are going really good on that front.
Sweet. Yeah, and I think with that, we'll pop over to our Q&A segment if you're good with that, Steven.
Q&A.
Absolutely.
All right, and I'll play the video in the background. So we have something to look at whilst we go through them. So our first question here is from North the Mage and Elwin Drill, and they both wanted to know about naval mechanics. Are there any plans to have wind in sailing? And I know we've talked about this topic a little, but we haven't gone into super depth with it.
Yes, there is wind. Wind is an important component of the open sea,
There's wind?
open sea. So that's all non-coastal areas. And that open sea, based on the composition of wind and the open sea, will influence the speed directionally that a boat is traveling in, and how that speed gets influenced by the winds. That can be an important strategic component when discussing timing for trade runs or timing for what your location is in relationship to your target out at the open sea. And it just creates a little bit more fluid and dynamic experience.
I wonder how big these
when you're at sea,
are going to be.
You're not in this
separated.
cove, and you always know how
maybe
you're
that
going
map
to interact
is
with the open water and the speed that you have, so you can predict accurately what your intercept rate or distance will look like. If that is a variable and that variable changes, right, then you have to adapt your strategies for that variable. And I think that is a very healthy and keeps things fresh from a perspective of a cat and mouse game that usually occurs between ships in the open waters.
I'm excited for naval combat.
Yes.
It's going to be fun.
Yes, I will.
Next up, we have Kiwi asking about gear customization, which, we do have a thread about it. So with the most recent dev discussion going on, what were your plans so far with
we only had a way to test this. I know.
And the color and die system.
So one of the things that we want to do, again, talking about player agency, is we want to give them the ability to kind of change the appearance of their armor sets that they're wearing. And the way we've approached the die solution is through a channeled system. We have a 2-channel die system where the first channel is a lower grade die that it has influence over between 10 to 20% of your overall armor appearance. And then the second channel die is a higher tier die that you have to acquire. And by doing so, you can influence the remaining 30%, up to 30% of that armor appearance. So up to a total of 50% influence that can occur across all the pieces that you wear. Now, One unique approach to the way we're doing this die system is we're not allowing individual dies to be applied on individual items, but instead we keep a cohesion across the set by applying that die channel to your character. And when you equip a piece with your overall character, it will assume that die channel from your paper doll. So you apply the dies to your character, and when you equip a piece of item, it will take that die and it will influence the channel over that particular piece so that it comes into alignment. And the reason that we're doing that is there's a lot of options with regards to customization for your character appearance, whether it be through transmog, through costumes, through mixing and matching sets and pieces that you can wear, right? And what we want to avoid is the rainbow effect, where these pieces do not look good together, and it creates the clown that's walking down the street, and it's a bit comical to see the clown that's walking down the street. So we've unified it through the die channel system that applies across your paper doll.
Okay, that's fine. I accept that.
Definitely some
so you
thoughts
can
on that. So
you can
our next question is from Kraken.
So you can edit, change up to 50% of any armor piece. So my theory and how they're probably going to do it is kind of like a colors or like a group colors. You can make guild coloring really easy with this. Everybody gets like a silver chest piece in your guild or something similar, but then the trim is, say, the lower, so you can make that a blue. And then you can do the main chunks or something on here, maybe your shoulder pad or whatever, you can make orange as the remainder, something of that nature. And that way you have the overall look of your armor piece, but you're able to change half of it, but the main guts of it probably will stay, in my theory. Yeah, it depends on the level. So, well, okay, but there's two channels. There was a lower channel and a higher channel, right? So you could leave, the main color, and then you have two channels for two different colors. One will do 20% and the other does 30%, I guess. I don't know, I think that'll be really good if you have a guild that has like a big, like you want to have a cohesive organization. You all are like, well, everybody, your main channel needs to be blue. But your secondary channel on all your armor needs to be either red if you're an attacker, green if you're a healer, and black if you're a tank. I don't know. And maybe you could do coloring like that, or do it by squads if you get really big guild, or you could do it by like, if you're a combat character, you need to have red. If you're a crafter, you need to have green. Stuff like that. Might be interesting for your guild. And then everybody gets together and you go, oh, I know who's going to be fighting today and who's going to be eating popcorn watching us fight. I don't know, that sounds cool. I like that. It's cohesive. That's totally fine with me. Totally fine with me. All right, back to
They would like to know about freeholds. Do you expect most players who want a freehold to be able to get one? Or will they be prestige symbols owned by a small fraction of players?
That is a very good question. I think the answer is that if a player wants to achieve a freehold, they can achieve the freehold. However, the amount of effort, resources, and time that's required in order to achieve that freehold is a large amount. It is something that is a monumental achievement for you to get that freehold. And the reason why is because freeholds tie in very heavily to the processing artisanship aspect. Some processing can be done in nodes, but the best processing is done on freeholds. And we want to make sure that there's a little bit of a throttle or gate on the amount of effort that's necessary to achieve that influence over the processing market. And that means that it takes some time to achieve it. So ultimately, to answer that question, anybody who puts the effort in should be able to achieve a freehold, but it is going to be a major achievement for that character.
All right. And our next question is from Alexa and Phantom.
Another pause. I was just thinking that. So it might be very beneficial for a guild to pitch in together to create a freehold for, like, say, the guild leader. Like, especially early in the game when the game starts and you're trying to get ahead in the game. everybody comes together, pitches in, does what they have to do to get a freehold created for the guild master, and then that guild master will place his freehold in some ideal location, and then put beneficial, like items, in crafters and stuff like that, who need it because they need different processing equipment and tools. You can't do, like he said just now, you can't do everything in a node. So you need that freehold for that ultimate level crafting table or whatever. So that would be beneficial. You start with the guild leader, you get everybody chugging along. Maybe they have better processing tables for processing wood into lumber, something like that. And then you trickle that down to other people. And then after a while, hopefully the guild leader doesn't have to like spend his entire life playing the game with a with a freehold that's just for producing stuff. Eventually, other people will do it, and you're gonna have to make a community, like a real guild community again, which I really look forward to. People actually working together. Those people are gonna pop in. Like, oh, give me a free sword. I want a freehold. No, dude, you got to work for it. You got work to do. I love communities and MMOs. I like having my guild. I like having a community a little bit bigger. Maybe multiple guilds teaming up, stuff like that. I love that stuff. And that's what this game really sounds like.
And they want to know about,
and by the way, I just want to make sure we're clear that a freehold is one of 3 types of houses, right, that you can own. So just because the freehold is very difficult to attain doesn't mean that you don't have a space for housing and furniture that you can achieve through our apartment system or an inn or the static in-node housing. Those are alternate methods as well, but they do not have that aspect of the best processing is done there. The best processing is done on the freehold.
And being able to customize the outside of what your freehold looks like. If you're
the static housing, apartment you can't. You can customize the interior, but the static housing and nodes, they do have an outside area that you can customize. Yeah.
I was referring to the apartment, but
Thank you for clarifying absolutely. And specifically on the freehold, one thing that's unique is the blueprint system, right? Acquiring specific buildings that you can build ancillary to your home on the freehold as well.
Yeah.
Right. Have to have a home on the freehold.
And the next question is regarding the weather system, which we showcased. Will there be flooding caused by heavy rain, snow melting, or storms with rivers rising and rougher waters on the ocean, or the opposite with droughts?
I think that we haven't done any work on that yet, but in the weather and seasonal systems, we have talked about the potential of including flooding as well. I mean, the arid or desert type climate system that can be applied relatively with ease. The flooding can be a little.
You're like, oh, I love this
perspective.
His beach property here, and then like 2 weeks later, you're
having
underwater.
Submerged areas that flex between seasons of being flooded, where it becomes an underwater environment, and having times where it is a non-water environment for dungeons. That is cool. Something that we haven't worked on yet, but we have talked about. Wouldn't be present in Alpha 2, but it's something we want to explore.
It would be very cool to have like that dynamic combat where like, ooh, during the winter you want to go there for this, and during the summer you want to go there for that.
Yeah.
And also on that side, we have shown how our tide system works too. So like,
the tides.
If you're interested in seeing that too.
Yeah.
And we have from Bomanizer, they want to know about game settings. Will dense foliage be baseline in the game, or will people turn them off in the settings to minimize PvP efficiency? I think hiding in bushes.
We will not allow. We will not allow players to to adjust the density of foliage actors in the world. That will be universal. It's going to be, of course, there are going to be areas that are more dense than others.
I like that too.
It's meant to be part of a part of the world that players can utilize for certain purposes, like hiding in for PvP. However, there will be collision with those foliage actors and the player capsules. So as you might see that bush moving and think, that's odd. That doesn't look like wind. There must be something there. And that's the kind of immersion that we want, right?
Yeah. And like when you're walking in the grass, if things move and you're like, what's going on over there?
Right.
That would be cool. As a fellow PvPer, that'd be fun. Triel wants to know about weapons. Will equipping different weapons change your skill set? And if so,
No.
how will you balance that in regards to
No.
class identity, as in having character
Like,
be
shut up.
defined
No.
by their equipment base as opposed to their class?
I am not a fan of in MMORPGs having equipment-based skill sets. I think that you have class-focused skill kits, and that if I know your class, I know what you have access to. I might not necessarily know what you've spec'd into, but I am sorry. I strongly dislike the idea of tying the skills into the weapon. I think it's unique. I think it's novel. It's just not for me necessarily. Our approach is not going to be providing skills through weapons. It's going to be providing skills through classes.
And then we have Hamlet, who wants to know about bugs and exploits. Are you guys open to server rollbacks in the event of an unforeseen bug or dupe that would introduce an economy breaking amount of currency into the economy?
Server rollbacks are emergency scenarios.
Those are like crazy.
Are we open to taking emergency action if it's necessary? Yes, of course, we're open to doing whatever is necessary to address unforeseen problems. But it should be a last ditch option.
Right. Yeah, that was a silly question. What is Steven going to be like? I died in a raid. I'm going to roll the servers back.
Something like that, we would remove the dupe. Anybody who
exploited Asmund Gold died and lost his sword. Oh, let's roll the servers back.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a stupid question.
And we can easily remove those, those pieces of economy from the system.
Not just pieces, those people.
Yes. Like I was saying, there will be repercussions for the exploiters, but I think sometimes there's a dupe and you don't know that it's happening, right? Like you're just like, oh, I accidentally did something.
Oh, I don't accidentally think that found 50 legendary items in my inventory. How did this get here? I have no clue.
If it was over and over, you know what you're doing. But if someone just did it once,
I don't know if you're like EA
and reported it, we just
they just let it go.
Like I think
I have there's 10 billion gold. How did this get into my inventory?
There's a difference in exploiting versus someone happenstancing upon something and reporting it. So if you encounter something, please report it. That way there's no action on your account. Golid would like to know about caravans. Caravan attackers have only the reward of stealing the caravan goods without any risk currently planned according to the wiki. Since the game is about risk versus reward, what is the risk you plan to add for caravan attackers?
Well, I mean, there is a level of risk that comes with the attacker, right? We have progression paths that exist for bandits and that exist for defenders. And if you choose to opt into a caravan attack, you sign up for that attack and you fail that attack, it is detrimental to your path of progression down the bandit area, right? That's one thing. Two is, of course, you have gear decay. You have degradation that can be suffered if you die. That is a cost. And then you also have a reputation. And if your reputation precedes you when you want to make movements of good and transit goods across the world, and you see somebody who's doing it, and you want to participate as a defender or a participant, they might say, hey, screw you. You were just murdering my people last week, and I saw that you're like on the top of the bandit list for killing caravans. It has repercussions in the sense that it locks you out of certain player groups. That's my goal, to be on the top of the bandit list. It provides decay to your armor. It has deleterious effects on your progression in the attacking and the bandit progression of
and then make people pay me in game to not raid their caravans.
All right,
it's genius.
Our next question is from Spyromancer, and they want to know about looting. If looting rights are based on a blended tag and damage done system, will there be any mechanics in place to ensure roles like tanks and healers have an equal shot even when they haven't dealt as much damage?
I think that's the reason for the blended approach. The reason that, excuse me, the reason that we're doing a hybrid system between tag and damage done is for the purposes of those classes who may not be as DPS oriented as other classes. The tag system, all classes are going to have a sprinkling of immediate effects of instantaneous casts, and they can use that to tag a target, and that'll give them a modifier on the looting right. So plus 10% or plus 15% will balance that, but it'll give them plus 10 to 15% on overall damage done if they tag the target, and then their damage will make up the remainder of that percentage.
But what about a healer?
So if I do 50% damage to a target, but someone else has the tag, I'm not going to be able to claim that looting right. They'll have done the other 50% plus 10 or 15.
Okay. And then our last question is from Lithion, and they would like to know about artisan gear. Will gear for artisans be strong enough for a player to defend against an equal level player who is in combat gear?
Gear for artisans. So we actually just had it. We actually just had a conversation about the gear for artisans. The gear for artisans are going to live alongside your adventuring gear. So you will currently, the approach is, and we'll test this, but currently the approach is you'll have artisanship oriented gear. This might be beneficial for your gathering. It might be beneficial for your processing or crafting or whatever it is, right? Your profession, essentially.
Sounds like
you will craft that gear. You will equip that gear. It'll live almost as a undergarment slot, so to speak. And then you can activate that and it will show the appearance, if you wish, during the activation when you gain the benefit from the gear itself. And then could disappear afterwards and go back to your adventuring gear. That's like the current approach. We're going to play with that a little bit. There's some discussion and disagreement on the team about how we do that. But our hopes are for Alpha 2, we will have, I think, a couple of sets at least. We're demonstrating all of the artisanship from gathering to processing to crafting in limited fashion in Alpha 2. And we want to have that gear present to kind of play with this approach.
And then the flip side of this question, in case they meant it this way, if you had crafted gear versus gear that you attained through like
I thought they were talking about like profession gear.
I believe that is, but just in case that this is the other alternative way that they meant that question, how would crafting gear compare to like that of raid gear or PvP
crafted gear in the game is the best
why
gear.
would you
so I'm going to tell you one thing
pull it
that
off of the threat generator.
I cannot,
like other games have, you heal, it generates threat.
One thing
you
that
damage,
I'm not
generates
a
threat. Tames hit abilities
that
helps generate threat.
You develop a crafting system in a game.
It should be threat oriented,
spend a lot of time
damage.
making this from a material and resource perspective, all the tables that you can receive, all the...
Pause it. Uh-oh. Did I go back a second?
We actually just had a conversation about the gear for artisans. The gear for artisans are going to live alongside your adventuring gear. So you will currently, your profession essentially, you will craft that gear, you will equip that gear. It'll live almost as gear itself and then could disappear afterwards and go back to your adventuring gear. I think a couple of sets at least, to kind of play with this approach.
And then the flip side of this question, in case they meant it this way, if you had crafted gear versus gear that you attained through like
I thought they were talking about like profession gear.
I believe that is, but just in case that this is the other alternative way that they meant that question, how would crafting gear compare to like that of raid gear or PvE gear,
crafted gear in the game is the best gear. So I'm going to tell you one thing that I cannot, I'll be less inflammatory in my speech. One thing that I'm not a fan of is that you develop a crafting system in a game, right? And you've spent a lot of time making this from a material and resource perspective, all the tables that you can receive, all the connectivity in the economy and how crafting is associated with the game. And then you undermine the crafting entirely by presenting a separate route of gear acquisition that is on par with the crafting efforts. So here you have these people who are acquiring all of the resources, getting all the recipes, leveling up their professions, and then everything they make is less or equal to anything you could just have chosen the easier path of and gone down the questing and received the best gear. So what we do focus on is that crafters make the best shit. Excuse me, the best things. They make the best things.
He's
thank you very much. I apologize.
Just kidding, I'm just messing.
So they make the best things. And the reason they make the best things is because the effort required to make those things is monumental. And that's an important aspect of the whole gameplay loop.
Awesome.
I like that.
And
Good.
I'm pretty sure they meant it the first way, but I think having both answers is great for the audience. And with that, we're going to wrap up our June update We hope that you all have had an amazing month. We definitely have on our end. We have so much more to share with you throughout the upcoming months. So we hope that you will tune in next month for our July update. And any other final things you want to mention,
I
Stephen?
just want to say at the end of last year, we promised you that this year would be a banger when it comes to the stuff that we showcase. And I've been very proud of the quality that we've achieved in the showcase of the character creator,
Yeah,
of
the
weather
materials
systems, of the combat
going to be
direction.
massive.
And I think there's a lot
focus for what's being dropped,
more
and I'm happy
great
with
stuff
that.
in store for you guys. So I just want to reiterate, the most important thing is get registered on our forums, go comment, give us your feedback. The big question is, do you like the direction of today's update? Is it a positive change?
I like this.
Is it better than where it was?
Yes.
Right? That is what's important. Give us your experiences, give us your feedback. Do it on our forums or on our Reddit or on our YouTube, wherever you want to do it, wherever you feel most comfortable. But feel free to get engaged. That's the whole reason we do these updates, is because one, I mean, we love showing the work that we do, but two, we want to elicit that feedback.
Good, let us play, Stephen.
So that's the important aspect. Just want
yeah,
to
and right now there are quite a few threads up. There's a gear color customization, dev discussion, and our basic weapon melee attack combos. Both of those feedback threads are up. Please give us feedback on them. Also, just as a reminder, our opulent negotiations cosmetics will be swapped over on July 13th. So if you want to grab those by 11 a.m. And of course, thank you to everyone who tuned in live. If you're watching this on YouTube, we super duper appreciate you as well.
Duper.
And,
boy.
we hope that you all stay healthy and safe. And this video will be up on YouTube, as well as we will release.
That is an ugly lizard in the bottom.
Potentially the combat video as well. We'll be discussing.
Yeah, I think we'll do that. We'll do that right after the stream. It'll be in 4K, so you guys can head over to YouTube, take a look there, and it's 4K gloriness.
Yes, and we will post it to all our social channels as well. And of course, those will uploaded to YouTube. Head on over to our YouTube. Don't forget, on the dev update, if you leave us a comment and subscribe to our channel, next month you could be spotlighted as our lucky winner.
Oh yeah, let me go make some comments.
Answer your question or talk about your comment.
No one will ever take my
comment. And with
comments.
that, we hope to see you over on our Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Discord, Snapchat, whatever social platform you prefer. We are there all the time. We are interacting with you guys on a daily basis. So please come hang out with us and tell us all the things and your thoughts. And we will see you next time.
Do we have a no, never mind. Sorry. Go ahead. No, we're good.
Thanks before you speak.
Where's good?
Bye, everybody. Have an awesome weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Well, that was a really good one. Might as well load it all the way out. Just in creation. There we go. Good enough. So that was a pretty good stream. I was happy with it. The combat looked a lot better than what it was in Alpha 1 for sure. That sword felt heavy. Like when I was testing in Alpha 1, when I was testing, they didn't have a long sword two-hand like that. I don't remember. I just had like a one-handed sword, and it felt like I was just doing this with a stick half the time, whipping my arm around. This actually felt like there was weight, and you were doing your motions and your moves. It almost felt like, it almost felt like an anime I was watching, where they have like those massive two-hand swords that you should never be able to lift one person. And that's kind of how it felt, but that sword was huge. So, but yeah, that was cool. They hinted at the ultimates. They talked about a bunch of other stuff. I do want to see what end result is with the health bars over people's heads. I'm not totally upset with if they didn't have it. I'm used to it, but it would be a nice change to have a game without it. Maybe if I targeted the enemy, it would show something of that. Trust me, some days I wish I did not log into Discord with some of the stupid stuff. Yeah, I was totally turned off by their Discord. No HP number. Oh, you're talking about yeah. I wonder. I don't know. I'm okay with not having the bar directly over their head. It kind of leaves a little mystery, but Yeah, not having the number plastered up. That yeah, I don't know. It's gonna be. We'll see what Alpha 2's like. Maybe they'll have an iteration with it, and maybe it'll be something unique or classy or whatever you want to call it. But I really look forward to seeing what Alpha 2 is like, especially that very unique looking desert monster. I forget what they called it, that tank or whatever. It looked really interesting. It had those two like tentacle arms with the claws. Kind of looked like a turtle slash like a low cat or something like that. But then it shot like a spike out of its forehead. So I wonder if it's going to be. I don't know. It looks really interesting. I hope it has. I hope it'll dig, kind of go underground, do some stuff, and then the tentacles will come up and like fight for a little bit, and then the whole thing comes up. I think that'd be super unique concept to have for that boss. It might be a lot to do, especially for a boss that might be out. If it's in the open world, that would be really difficult. If it's trapped behind a phased wall or gate you'd have to walk through, then it's more doable. But that looked very cool. When they mentioned the bandit system, I think that's the first time I've heard of the bandit system, and it's gonna have a public record for everybody who's attacked caravans. I like that concept. That's a very good concept to have to show people in the world, hey, this guy's a bandit, he's always attacking caravans, maybe we shouldn't deal with him. And if they make it like a public listing at the town hall of a node, that would be pretty cool. There's one of the original APOC monsters during the... Oh, it was. You mean during their, like, the Castle Siege game that never happened? That one? I'd have to go back and look, but... Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I'm trying to think about. I don't remember, but oh no, it was a lore item. Oh, okay. I thought we visually saw it. But you're just talking about the lore and everything. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I like that. And then they referenced the ancients when they were talking about that boss, which was I don't know if they've ever mentioned the evil guy's name, like or the evil organization or whatever it being called the ancients. I don't remember that ever, so that might be something new or something I've missed. It's always been like the corruption they've called it. Maybe they're fleshing out lore in the background right now, and they're tying stuff together, and they're forgetting what's what. Yeah, corruption. But I thought he referenced the ancients. Oh well. I mean, I'm sure they're in a flux right now of storyline telling and detailing and all that other fun stuff. Um, you know, I'm sure there's a room filled with like a chart of just lines connecting people and things and quests that they're writing and stuff. But yeah, it was a pretty decent stream. They had like not in 2021, all their streams for the most part were kind of boring, in all honesty. They were just kind of a drag. The start of this year they were kind of a drag if I remember, but they got pretty good. Last one with the weather environments. This one with combat was decent. I don't think they needed to spend 30 minutes on a video for combat. I don't know how long it was, but it felt like 30 minutes. For ability moves and stuff like that. They could have probably wrapped it up real fast, shown people moved on with their lives, but it looked good. I was really happy with it. Dragged them out. This wasn't bad. Yeah. And yeah, they did drag them out. That's for sure. Hour and a half, 2 hours. Somewhere I feel like, oh man, they were long and boring. And as much as I love this game and I'm so much ready for it, I would want to shoot myself, especially when I was doing a video like this, and And I'm sitting there, I'm like, I can't stay awake, you know. I don't know. It was rough. I wanted to, but hey, Margaret's getting better at organizing it. They're getting a little quicker about it. You know, they're seeing what their audience wants, which is I'm happy. You know, Steven and the crew at Intrepid, I always get a good feeling that they actually are listening to their audience and they're the people that have paid into it and who care about it. You know, putting that effort in. So it's a nice change from most game studios. Um, yeah, I don't, you know, the last time I really remember Game Studio listening to their people was, I mean, besides indie devs, which they're like, there's 5 of them on a team, and they care about what they're doing because it's their life. I really don't remember any big studios. Star Wars Galaxies, I remember they did care, they did listen a bit. But then they got money pulled and their dev team was shrunk to nothing. And then they just didn't have the manpower to do stuff. So, I mean, that was later after the NGE happened and stuff and that horrible decision. But and I remember devs would pop into the world and would chit chat with you, dress up as Jabba the Hutt, and would slug around and chase people and lock them in jails and throw. It was fun stuff they would do. They would hang out every once in a while. 2 hours in Margaret's talking about cats. Yeah, they would get a little delirious in some of their streams. It would be ridiculous. It really would be, but whatever. So yeah, so I think that was a good stream. I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. No really negatives necessarily besides that health bar thing. We got to wait, just hear more about. That's fine. If you're looking for more of my content, you can find me at YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, or my website, squeetee.com. I am Squeetee everywhere I am. I haven't done these like live stream reviews or whatever watch-alongs they are. I don't know what to call it. For a while, but I've had like I actually have had like 10 people in the last 2 weeks. They're like, "Oh, you're gonna stream the June update for Ashes? Where are you gonna do this?" I'm like, I wasn't planning on it, but I've had a couple, so hopefully they watch. I know one is watching. He's been talking to me the whole time. I appreciate you hanging out with me, man. Yeah, I think that's about it. I am going to go get some dinner, and that's about it. Yeah, so anyways, guys, I'll catch y'all later. Have a good one. I appreciate it. And yeah, you too, Ghibli. You have a good one, man. I'll talk to you in Gilded and stuff. So, all right, later, everybody.